Everyone. Good morning and welcome to my acrylic painting show. And this is Happy Little Journal. Today we're going to be painting a Bob Ross inspired painting with acrylic paints. I'm going to be recreating all of the pages of this book. It's going to be filled with 24. I was going to say all of his episodes, but no. There were 31 seasons with 12 episodes each, so that is not happening. I'm going to be recreating 24 and filling up this journal with his beginner-friendly paintings, except for, yes, the acrylic paints, of course. I'm going to use my palette and my painting techniques to complete each one of these little pieces of artwork. If you're interested in winning this journal, I'm going to be giving it away on the end of the completion of the... At the end of the journal, I'm going to give this thing away to some lucky viewer, and the details are all in the description. Reference photo for this painting is going to be in the Art Community Discord, and the links to that are in the description as well. So let's get to this thing. I am restructuring all these paintings from the ground up. Today we're going to be painting Season 1, Episode 5, which is titled Quiet Stream, which is ironic because we're not going to be a quiet stream today. I have my paper, my mechanical pencil. Any pencil will do, of course. I just like mine being never-endingly sharp. So I have like a general shape. It doesn't have to be fancy, broken up into thirds in each direction. I'm looking at our reference photo here, which is a screen capture from the show. So it's a little bit blurry and pixelated, but for the most part, we have a stream coming down from the top third, and it makes a multiple tiered journey getting bigger towards the foreground and then exits out the right side of the painting. There's a little waterfall that happens here, and I think that's all in a really good spot. We're going to leave all that. There's some rocks. I see one rock here, I see one rock on the bank here, and then another rock. Or do I? Well, either way, we'll put a third rock in because I like things in threes. So the creek comes this way and then back that way. There's some trees. I'm going to move this tree that's in the midground up to the front here on the bank in the middle, on the third line, because it's got beautiful white bark. I kind of dig that. So we're going to move it here, bring the foliage over the creek, I think, make it kind of the star of the show. Make sure there's lots of light, airy foliage above. Everything down here is green. We're just going to keep that green. But the background, we're going to make that dark back here. And you know there cannot be light without some darkness. So we're going to make sure that the far background is like a dark spring forest. And that's going to make the highlights on this tree pop and the white bark pop. So we're going to add a couple more of those white trees here. And then a little scraggly guy. The scraggly guy that's dead center, almost dead center, in this original painting. We're just going to move him over. Maybe some branches can come over the creek. There we go. We'll see how we're doing on contrast, because he gets lost a little bit. Looks like there's maybe a rock or a log or something like that down here, and then just lots and lots and lots and lots of grass. But really this tree and the waterfall, star of the show. So there's no clear direction where the light comes from. It looks like diffused lighting from straight above, so I'm going to make a mental note of that, and a physical note of that here. And then, what else are we looking for? Lead lines. Lead lines to a focal point. And remember, we got to pick out a focal point. So I am thinking the focal point is going to be, I want it to be the white foam at the bottom of this waterfall, even though that is a little bit away from the center. maybe there can be light shining on the water and the water can be brighter directly underneath the sun. That would make sense. So, okay, we're gonna focus, because you want the focal point, hopefully it's in the center third, approximately, of your painting, because that's where your eye wants to go. And then you want to create lead lines to it. So the lead lines are going to be the tree. The trees are all coming down. The water itself is all coming down. So we're going to try to accent and pop this water here. Which means the areas around it will be a little bit darker from, shaded from the foliage above. All right, now that we have that all planned out, we're going to move that over here. And we're just going to put in alcohol ink some reference marks on our paper that we're working on. You don't need to be exact, just kind of general. Keep myself on track here. Remember that the creek is getting bigger as we come into the foreground. Here is the waterfall. Here's our rock. And then the creek is getting bigger here. Another rock. Scraggly tree. Here's our area of interest, primary area of interest. We're going to put a big rock there, and that's going to help the contrast out a bit. The rock's going to have a highlight because it's underneath the light. And here's our big white barked tree with our big interesting foliage. Lots of little bird holes. And then darkness behind it, very important. These other trees, it's not going to matter too much. They're wherever they feel happiest when we get there. And then of course grass. The grass is going to kind of come over the creek area. All right, that's all we need. Now we're going to work on a underpainting and a ground. Move our little sketch over there. Reference photo move over here. Remember, that is available for you to look at. You can also just look up the show. The show is for free just about anywhere you look. So, it's just hard to get a good angle on the show. Because they just did that. Seemed like they just did the show with a single camera. So I am going to be using some cadmium red medium and cadmium yellow light to make an orange color. I'll put a little bit of blue in there just to kind of mute the color just a bit. We're working on paper, so it's okay if you add water to your paint. It'll just absorb in and that'll be fine. These are the darker areas of our scene. Also kind of vignettes your composition. Drawing your eye to your focal point in the center of your scene. Okay, that'll do for our underpainting. I'm gonna make sure I like everything that's going on here. gonna rinse out that brush. I am done with it for now. I'm gonna switch over to my small flat brush, and I am gonna mix a bright green. Gonna use cerulean blue and the cadmium yellow to make something real bright and cheerful. Starting with the foliage on our focal point, like our better tree, or I was going to say our focal point tree, but we decided to make the light on the creek the focal point, so I'm going to be negative painting around this foliage. I'm keeping the brush strokes loose. I want to make light coming here on the tree, there on the water, and then here on the grasses that are overlapping the creek. I'm going to also need to get more cadmium yellow. Gonna add some bright spots. I'm angling my brush to create some different shapes also. Okay, so I feel like we should do our dark greens and cut into that area next. Just gonna use that same green area and add some ultramarine blue. Very contrasty. Using the same exact brush, I am just gonna cut in some interesting shapes. I'm gonna leave some grass, like negative painted grass shapes down at the bottom. For later. Changing the angle of my brush as I paint because the different shapes are going to be more convincing that there's different plants and different types of foliage happening behind this tree. A little bit darker, a little bit lighter, vertical shapes, horizontal shapes.
at the audacity of man.
There's a lot happening in this forest.
They all know much, but understand little.
Okay, now I'm going to move across to the other side of the creek with that same dark color. I'm going to be positively painting the trees on this side just to mix it up. So I'm going to work my way down with some pretty dark blue-green. Still using the same brush. Okay, now about here, where we're reaching the bend in that creek, we're gonna lighten it up. Painting around that little rock area that we marked out for ourselves. I'm using the brush sideways to get these grass type shapes. I don't want to go too crazy overlapping the creek area because we don't have any of that in. We're about to do that now. Now a lot of that green is going to be reflected on the creek. We're going to be using some white. We're going to use some dark color also. Picking up ultramarine blue, cadmium, medium red on the edge of the green here, and I'm going to mix like a dark, kind of almost brown. Not completely neutral. Ooh, it's getting there though. Going for like a warm gray. Every time you see this color going to a purple, you can add yellow to bring it back. Towards gray again. All right, there we go. That's more like what I'm thinking. Maybe a touch more blue. Okay, there. Now this is going to be the bottom of the creek color. I'm going to try to use horizontal strokes to get it in here. But you do what you can. Until you get to the waterfall, of course. And you go with the motion of the water. Now pick up some white. Moving back and forth. Do some horizontal light strokes across your creek area. Of course, this area right here we're hoping is we're gonna pull off some sort of sky reflection right there is the hope. But can we pull it off with just a little bit of cerulean blue and some white? We're gonna find out. Just switch between that gray and the white. Until you get the texture that you like. I added a little bit more ultramarine blue. My brush strokes are kind of like really tight S's. Mixing our primary colors again to get that dark gray, a little bit more red now, almost. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna make sure it progressively gets darker, moving back. And then, isn't there a rock right here? A little bit vague. That's okay. I'm making sure that the water is pretty darn dark at the base of the waterfall because I want all the highlights to pop. I'm just going to paint right over those little grass shapes right now. We can add them back in later, no big deal. They should be dry from earlier anyway. Rinse out our flat brush. I'm going to pick up some white. That's pretty clean. I'm going to put some dapples on our highlight area. And blobby horizontal strokes. Highlights in some other places too, coming down the creek. So now I have a mix of the darker gray with white. And I'm not gonna just make it the same color the whole way across the creek. It's gonna be a little bit darker over on this side. And then a little bit lighter over there on that side where the sun is coming down. And then this will give us a little bit of space to make the waterfall landing bright. Using the same brush that we've been using most of this time, I'm just going to make some strokes that go up the water area and then horizontal as well, more towards the base. I'm rotating the brush to get some interesting shapes, and I'm going to take clean white and kind of just like gently place it on top so that it's nice and opaque. I'm going to be adding a rock there. The foam, of course, is going to be making its way around that rock. And it's going to dissipate a little bit as we move into the immediate foreground. Okay, now let's put our rocks in. Ultramarine blue, cadmium red medium, little touch of yellow. If it's too green, add red. When it becomes too brown as a result, add more blue till you get something that's more neutral, more gray. All right, now with just a couple of meaningful brush strokes at a couple angles, let there be rock. All right. Rock here, and then a rock. Rock here, but I'm going to add a little highlight to that guy right there. Not a dramatic highlight. Okay, all three of them have highlights. Now we can jump back to the background trees. I want them to be a little bit brighter than this guy, but not dramatic. Maybe I'll add a little bit of white just to make the tone slightly different. They're going to be kind of ambiguous, so you can just go for it. Leave a lot of little bird holes though, so the birds can get out and play. Making sure that the paint is a little bit thicker in some spots and not in other spots. Okay, now I think it's time for trunks. Starting to wonder how long we can use this brush. Can we just use it for the whole time? Okay, now the area where you mixed gray, you can take some white and kind of just mix it towards the gray. Rotate your brush over. Now we're gonna do some trunks. We're gonna do them with horizontal strokes though, to give the illusion of bark. Got kind of a medium gray there. Okay, now pick up some white, some brighter white, and use the same brush strokes over the medium gray to give it some dimension. And you can put a couple branches up in the foliage as well. Okay, going back to the medium gray, I'm going to move to the background trees, and I'm just gonna place them wherever I feel they need to be. And I'm gonna make sure that the branches are disconnected from each other so it looks like they're moving in and out of the foliage. They are a darker gray than the medium gray that we're using on the foreground tree. If you end up with a trunk that is thick enough, you can put a slightly brighter gray on there in a horizontal stroke to get the bark texture going. But just lightly touch it on there. Okay, I feel like that's about right. Now, the little scraggle tree is going to be the absolute last thing, so right now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the grasses. These are going to be bright green. I'm going to use cerulean blue and the cadmium yellow light. Real bright, real bright. Same brush still. I'm going to do the edges of the creek, and I'm not going to be afraid of overlapping. Real gentle touch. I'm using the very edge of the brush and then the full side. These are all side brush strokes. You're going to overlap back into the woods and then over the creek. And if you can swing it, you can kind of get some arching strokes. If you're not comfortable with this brush, you can switch to a point brush if that's more your speed. That's totally fine. Being nervous to push your brush down too firmly and make a giant brush stroke is kind of scary. Big grass coming over the edge of our creek here. That's kind of creating a lead line. If you want to bring some darker grasses over the lighter grasses that you're placing in, that will give it more dimension. It's going to be shadowed grass even in the highlight areas. Supposed to be a rock right there. My goodness, we forgot him. Oh dear. Taking a break from grass right this second because I'm seeing that we could add some defined areas like leaves on this tree and just use straight yellow. This is gonna lead your eye to our focal point also. Just a couple areas where it looks like leaves. You can overlap it from the negative painting that we did on this tree over the background forest, give it a little bit more dimension and texture. Right on the edges of these shapes. You can also use them to hide any kind of weird shapes that you're not in love with. Okay, there we go. Now back to the grass. Sometimes I will get distracted by something I see and just want to remember to do right then. And that's what's nice about acrylic paint. You can move from what you're doing to something else real quick and then come back. No big deal. Working in layers is fun for that reason too. You could just infinitely stack paint on top. Amazingly, we're still using the same brush, which is why I love these brushes. They're just structurally really sound, and you can make a lot of different shapes with them. I am not sponsored by this brush company. If you would like to know what I'm using, the link is in the description. That'd be nice though, I'll tell you what. Okay, I'm gonna bring these grasses up higher here. So I think that would make an interesting shape, kind of fill some of that dark space right there. Okay, now a little bit of darker grass. Even in that highlight area to break up the patterns. Especially in the edge of the painting right there. Okay, do we want to add that rock that we forgot about? We're going to be mixing a dark color for this foreground tree anyway, so I guess his time has come. So that's the cadmium red, the ultramarine blue, and just a touch of the cadmium yellow. A little touch of white for the highlight there. And just with rocks, as few brush strokes as possible, something angular. Otherwise they can get really lumpy. Oh man, should we try to do this last tree with the same brush and then call it like a 2-brush painting? Sure, let's do it. It would be easier to use a liner on these tiny tree branches for those of you at home that don't want hard mode. But you know, this is a scraggly little tree that doesn't have any branches. Yet. We'll say yet. He's just a late sleeper. Okay, it's going a little too green. It's going to add a little bit more red. Okay, here we go. Going to place it in the foreground grass right about here. Real light strokes. I don't want to do curvy lines with this brush. That would be too scary. Picking up the base there, making sure all the branches are kind of like connected. Now I'm checking out our final composition as I paint, making sure all the lead lines are going to the right spots. Oh God, gotta keep those branches real thin. Would be easier with a liner. That's okay. We were going for challenge mode. Okay. Let's put our final round of white, because I like to wait for everything to dry. Clean a brush really well. Real well. Make sure that water is coming out pretty clean. And then take the brightest white and just gently touch on those highlights that you wanted. The bark here. Some of the waterfall here. Maybe just a little bit of that foam coming out, and then of course a nice big dollop daisy for this middle highlighted area. You can barely tell we added any blue to that spot at all. I really feel that there would be some green reflected in the water. I'm going to take, with water in my brush, a good amount of water in my brush, I'm going to go over to my darker green. And I'm going to take some, like half water, half paint, pretty transparent. And I am just going to drag some of that transparent green over the darker areas of the water. And I believe this will be the last thing that we do. If you keep the transparency of that paint pretty light, then you can go over your highlights and your shadows, and it's not going to change the texture and dimension of what you've already put down. I went a little far over the highlight. I'm going to take a brush we haven't even touched at all yet and just wipe that up. That's what I call an oopsie brush. You always keep something clean nearby and clean water so that you can just fix it real quick before it dries. Okay. I feel like the green was absolutely mandatory at the end to kind of bring the creek into reality. It was too gray before. It needs to be reflecting everything around it, so. Put a shadow underneath this leaf here because that light green is too light over the white on the creek. And this is called checkering, when you make sure that everything is dark that's next to something light. It defines the edges of each of your figures, whether it be a person or a thing or a building or what have you. Just kind of make sure everything is clearly defined. And you know, there could have been a shadow there. Okay. I think that's lovely, and that finishes it up. So thank you so much for hanging out for page 2 of our happy little journal. If you would like to win this journal upon its completion, please throw a like, a comment, and subscribe to either my social media posts, which is on Instagram, or here on YouTube. And I look forward to seeing you for our next stream. It's going to be a silent stream on Monday evening, and then another Bob Ross inspired tutorial is going to be on Wednesday morning. So have a pleasant weekend.